Fun is not a byproduct of the design process. Unhappy designers create unusable designs. Unhappy digital storytellers or UX people create unusable and unrelatable designs. So, to the best of your ability, find something that you actually are passionate about and find interesting, fun, and exciting.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today. I am your host, David Block, and today it's my pleasure to welcome a best-selling author, instructor of professional and executive development at Harvard University, and founder of Thoughtlight Digital Marketing, Christina Inge. Welcome to the show, Christina.
David, it's really exciting to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. And what I like to do is I like to start the show by basically diving way back in time, going back to your initial inspiration in the design industry, also your education. And so, I'd like to actually start with the first question or the first comment. You attended University of Maryland, where you earned your bachelor's in English, and then later you went to the University of Wyoming, where you received your bachelor's in instructional technology, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
that's really what was my first formal training in design. Instructional technology was the word we had for instructional design in a lot of contexts in those days. So it was really an ID degree, an instructional design degree. And online learning was just becoming a thing in those days. And so I was really interested in getting more formal training in design. So my background, as you mentioned, is my degree, my undergraduate degree is in English. And I started out as a copywriter back when, basically when writing was starting to become very digital. So, in other words, we really were seeing a shift like in the late 90s, when I graduated from college into the early 2000s of writing for the web becoming more of a thing. And, there weren't a lot of web designers, web developers in those days who, professionally. And so a lot of the time, you could both write for the web, for web publications, as well as be the person who knew enough HTML, knew enough design, where you could be laying out the pages and sourcing the graphics and doing the design itself. So for a long time, I kind of had that hybrid career where I was creating all kinds of digital media because digital media was so new, we didn't have these silos that we had. Right. So I actually got my start in journalism fresh out of college, and I got my start as an ad copywriter when one of my editors, Gina LaGuardia, Gina, if you are listening, I am eternally grateful. We are still friends on Facebook. She had an opportunity to write some ad copy for one of the magazines that I was writing for her, for one of their advertisers. So I did that. I was bitten by the ad copywriting bug. And then I started writing more commercial content, more content for ads, ghostwriting for for executives, creating sort of more commercial online content like that. And again, because this was the early days of the web, I taught myself HTML, and I also taught myself how to make the actual web pages. Right. So fast forward to early 2000s, a couple of years later, I decided that I wanted a degree in design. But I did not have the confidence in myself as a designer to go straight up into graphic design. And also, to be frank, at the time, it felt like that market was saturated, that there was a lot of competition there. So I wanted to specialize. And that's what led me in the direction of instructional design, which is a hybrid of just not only designing learning experiences from the digital media standpoint, but also strategizing how people learn and how best to create a digital media experience that helps people learn a topic. How long should the content be? How do people consume content in bite-sized chunks? What's the best way to approach subject matter to tell a story that people can learn from? So that digital learning focused strategy and storytelling has always been what excited me the most. coming from that background of both being a copywriter and being a web designer, I'm not just about the visual design. I'm about how do we bring text and video and audio and design, visuals, layout, and negative space, which I always consider to be just as important as the layout and the design. It is part of the design, together to tell stories and convey information. So my main concern is helping people glean something from a digital experience more so than just the design focus. And, part of me is like, well, maybe it's because I don't consider myself a brilliant artist. I consider myself more just someone who knows how to make things make sense, both visually as well as through text and other media.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, that's a great transition into my next question, actually, which is where you went in your first professional experience. So I'd like to know if you could take a look at the beginning of your career after college. What was, if you could talk about one of your first professional projects or a client that you worked with in the digital marketing realm? And tell us a little bit about that and the challenges that you faced with those projects.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of share, especially, since I know there's students listening here as well. I think that the experiences that I've had are a good sign that, there's room for everybody in design. If you're an artist, if you're a great illustrator, if you're a great animator, there's plenty of room for you there. But there's also room for folks like myself who are good at user experience, who are good at text, who are good at digital storytelling. That's design too. So don't think of it as just like an art career. Think of it as its own thing. Design being its own discipline that has room for people with analytic talent, people who are a bit more on the side of being a writer. If you're interested in design, you can craft a design career that leverages your best talents. So that's the direction that I went in. One of my early experiences that I learned a lot from was being an editor for an online community that was focused on different interests. This was, again, in the early 2000s. It was called Suite 101, Suite as in SUITE 101. And, eventually it got more into the content farming side of things. But when it started, it was a really exciting, dynamic website that was focused on building community around different subjects. And so my subject was, brace yourself, Regency romance novels. So if you're a fan of Bridgerton, it's that kind of thing. I'm sorry. You know what? The other thing I want to share is that it is perfectly okay to have your guilty pleasures and make a career around those. So that's my guilty pleasure. And that was it was at the time. And that's what I started to, that's what I was an editor of. And so I interviewed authors. I wrote historical articles about life in Jane Austen's era, in the Napoleonic era, which is the historical backdrop of these novels. I reviewed a ton of novels, and I had a blast. And again, it required some knowledge of HTML. It required a really good eye for finding historical visuals and presenting them, and a knowledge of copyright to know what you could and could not use from historical archives, as well as the ability to write. And what that taught me was how to bring every element of a digital experience together in a way that engaged users. Because those early online communities, you were dealing directly with your users. They were writing to you. They were communicating with you. It wasn't like users were people that you did some occasional user testing with and otherwise you did not see them. They were people you were communicating with in those communities. So it really taught me to listen to users, create what users want. And it also taught me, and I don't know if this is a product of being a Gen Xer or not, But, you know, I don't know about you, but I was raised to believe that you should always make the most sensible choices in career. You know, if you may not want to become an actuary, and no knock on people who want to be actuaries, but, you know, even if you find a job is not your cup of tea, if it pays well, if there's job security, go ahead and do it. And so you could imagine my surprise when beach reading, my at the time favorite beach reading, became such a pivotal professional experience for me, or at least the source of that professional experience. And it taught me one thing, because at the time I was also freelancing for a lot of other publications, including things I had no passion for at all. And you do a better job when you are having fun. Fun is not a byproduct of the design process. Unhappy designers create unusable designs.
Right.
Unhappy digital storytellers or UX people create unusable and unrelatable designs. So, to the best of your ability, find something that you actually are passionate about and find interesting, fun, and exciting.
I absolutely agree to that. So now moving on to your role as an educator, what motivated you to start teaching, and particularly at Harvard? I'm curious how that came about. And because when I think of Harvard, I think of law. I don't think of digital marketing. So I'm curious how that came
Well,
about.
fun fact, if you go back to like 1908, Harvard University offered to buy MIT or take it over because doing design and engineering was not considered anything other than a trade.
Oh,
And so it was more like, here, let's take the burden of teaching people a trade off of your shoulders, MIT. And MIT just laughed.
yeah.
Um, and, and sent a politely worded no back. And I think there is this tension between, is design a trade or is it an academic topic, right? Like, what's the line? Is civil engineering, my grandfather was a civil engineer, is that a trade or is that an academic topic? And he taught civil engineering as well. And so, you know, what is a trade and what's an academic topic? I don't want to get too deep into that debate, but I know that it's a debate. And I think it goes back to what I said before about, you know, I consider myself more of somebody who builds. By the way, this is my puppy Tilly.
Oh, there he is.
Tilly, let's get down. Again, I don't consider myself an artist. No, I'm not that kind of designer. But what is the line between trade and art? What is the line in design between art and commerce?
Right.
You know, that's a whole philosophical can of worms, and we could debate that for a long time. So, but what interested me in teaching was, again, this was, I would say, mid 2000s, late 2000s. There weren't really a lot of degree programs in digital media or digital marketing. All of us were self-taught or learning by going to conferences, you know, reading major blogs. There was no place where you could go and start to learn these things, and universities were starting to wake up to the fact that, yeah, we need to start teaching these topics. So I would say partly I was in the right place at the right time. I started just giving conference talks, literally, and teaching workshops at conferences because I wanted to build up my professional thought leadership, my professional profile. I wanted to build my career. And so that's how I started giving talks. And I found that I was good at it. I was helping people by teaching them the skills that we were all eager to learn at that time. And I was learning things from other people's workshops and talks that were happening just informally at meetups and at, you know, conferences and workshops. So I actually started teaching for the BU, Boston University Center for Digital Imaging Arts, and that was through my late wonderful friend Abby. She was working there in admissions, and they were looking for someone to teach SEO, search engine optimization, which is one of the other areas of specialization that I have at my agency, Thoughtlight. Which I hadn't even started then, but we're celebrating proudly our 10th anniversary now.
Yeah.
I'll get onto that topic in a moment. So actually, my friend Abby recruited me into that. And then another friend referred me when I did start my agency, Thoughtlight. I needed something to keep the lights on and pay the bills while I was building up my book of business.
Mhm.
And a friend of a friend needed a teaching fellow at Harvard to help with his class. My friend Dick Joltes, who I now consider to be my very close friend. I TA'd, was a teaching fellow for Dick for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then I said, I really think there needs to be a course on mobile marketing, mobile user experience. And at the time, mobile was one big amorphous topic, just on moving the enterprise to mobile.
Right.
And so Dick referred to me to our department chair and our dean, and with my heart in my throat, I pitched Harvard University my course idea.
Oh, wow.
And they said, yeah, it sounds like a fantastic idea. I gave it my all. I absolutely just put my research into it, thought it through, had a very good case for this class, and I got the green light.
Nice.
I'll never forget the day I got the letter of appointment with my contract. And, that class, obviously, mobile has moved on and it's no longer novel. So I've retired that class and now I teach other classes. And then a couple of years later, I also got recruited to teach at Northeastern University in their digital media program. It started, however, with that DIY mentality that we had when digital media was just starting, that we were all learning from each other. And I started out as a student of this, learning from other people, and I started giving my own workshops. And then, again, my growing passion for the topic, I then started teaching my own classes. And I think we're going to start to see the same thing as Chat GPT starts to emerge, is that those folks who are learning this out in the field, hands-on, are going to be the experts. Whenever any new technology is invented, there's nobody teaching it, right? Because it hasn't been around long enough to be an academic subject. It's the people doing it, the early people doing it, who become the instructors. So if you're working on something cutting edge right now, you're potentially the author or the professor of the topic in the future, because that's where new knowledge comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's actually really interesting, and I'm so glad that I was not the only one doing that, because back in the turn of the year 2000, there was no place to look for web design courses, and my dad and I started a web design company in '95, and we were just struggling to figure out, how do we do this? What is it supposed to look like? And in my desire to enhance my web design knowledge, the only thing I could find was a degree in graphic design. That's actually where how I ended up going back to college for that degree.
Absolutely. And I think we're past that in the design field, and I think we're there now with AI.
Absolutely.
That's where we are now.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious how you incorporate real world digital marketing challenges into your curriculum. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's absolutely the core of it. So, for instance, I teach frequently a course at Harvard called Fundamentals of Universal Design. And there we're focusing on both universal design in the sense of designing for people of all abilities, all identities, as inclusively as possible. So not making accessibility an add-on, but designing with accessibility and inclusion from the ground up. And also universal design for learning, which is a discipline that comes from the K through 12 field, that's more around designing learning experiences. Again, that's where I got my start in design, is in designing learning experiences. That was what my master's was in. And UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is around designing for all types of learners, whether you learn by doing things hands-on, whether you learn by theory, whether you're, a hyper-focused person or someone who can't sit still like me. I have one close business associate, Louis, who says that I'm like Tigger. And so that's the core of the curriculum. And so what I do in that class, as I do in all of my other classes, is I encourage my students, all of whom are adult learners. So I teach at the Harvard Division of Continuing Education for people who are going back for their graduate degree or graduate certificate while still a working adult or maybe during a career pause. Same at Northeastern. I teach in the CPS, the College of Professional Studies. So we have all of these really dynamic, brilliant working professionals. They have all of this career experience, and they're also often working in nonprofits, in consumer goods companies. And so your homework in my classes is you take a real design problem or a real marketing problem that you're encountering in your work, and you work on that, applying the principles you learn every week. So 1 week it might be to get your dog out of your lap. In 1 week, it might be to ensure that all of the videos on your website are not only closed captioned and meet the bare minimum requirement of accessibility, but also are they dynamic? Are they high contrast? Are they inclusive? Do they make people feel seen, heard, and respected? And so you do that maybe as your homework. Another time we'll look at the fonts and typography and make sure that the typography is both attractive and on brand, and also, again, easy for people with aging eyesight or dyslexia to be able to read.
Right.
And so basically, whether it's a marketing challenge or a design challenge, I allow my students to pick their own homework, create their own homework from their current marketing and design challenges. Now, everyone learns the same principles. Everyone walks out having learned all the same core skills, but one person has applied it to their consumer goods company, another person has applied it to their nonprofit, a third person has applied it to their side hustle. And so everyone walks out having made the work very relevant to their own personal experiences.
Outstanding. Okay, that's great. The reason I ask that is because I try to build in my work-based learning program. It's all about dealing with real world stuff. So I think it's very important to get them as much practical experience as possible while they're going through their education. Absolutely. If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. I'd like to move on a little bit and talk a little bit about Thoughtlight. So you founded Thoughtlight, and first of all, when did you start that company?
I started that company in 2014. In fact, the germ of the idea was at the end of April 2014, and we incorporated in July of 2014. So we are celebrating our 10th anniversary year, and it's been an incredible experience to be a founder.
And congratulations, by the way.
Well,
I'd love to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear about your services, and if you could talk about one or two of your favorite projects.
Oh, absolutely. So we offer soup to nuts design, digital design, and digital marketing services. We've worked with everybody from a couple of big four accounting firms, not allowed to disclose the names, to individual authors. And we do a lot of work, however, with mission-driven organizations. We offer web design, email newsletters and marketing automation, social media content creation and social media management, SEO, search engine optimization, as well as content strategy and pay-per-click advertising services, full advertising design as well. We also will do print. We've designed everything from annual reports to company magazines. So full design services, very much aligned, however, with the mission-driven organization. So we help you tell your mission-driven story. And we are accepting new clients. We're booking out right now into May is the earliest that we have availability, but we are accepting new clients, and especially eager to help people with their marketing automation and their direct-to-consumer marketing or fundraising. So with that, and we also always love a really good web design project. So in terms of some of my favorite projects, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my long-term clients, the Brandeis University Innovation Center. They do amazing work helping students, undergraduate and graduate students, get their startups off the ground. If you are a student at Brandeis University, and let's say you have a great idea for everything from an app that helps combat bullying, which one of my former graduate students is working on right now, and she's brilliant and amazing, by the way, to, let's say, a coffee shop on campus. You can go to the Brandeis Innovation Center and they will help you get your startup off the ground. So I have helped, I've been in charge of their digital media and design now for several years. And I'd say some of my favorite projects there is we come up with an annual highlights booklet. And this is print design. I can't even begin to tell you, when I got my start in digital media, how much print would still be relevant even in 2024. We come up with this beautiful highlights booklet. I no longer have much of a role in designing it. My brilliant designer who works for me, James, actually does the layout and design. But I originated this concept and was proud to hand it off to somebody else. It's a glossy magazine that celebrates the incredible breakthroughs that not only the students are doing, but also the university scientists. You have people here working on cures for cancer, working on cures for rare diseases that are afflicting children in developing countries, working on a cure for Alzheimer's. And this is really a chance to celebrate these folks and get their story into the hands of people who could potentially support their missions, licensing partners who could commercialize the technology, potential donors, and alumni to see what people are doing at their alma mater. So that is just such a celebratory experience that's one of my favorite projects.
Great.
My other favorite projects almost always involve pet food or pet product companies because I've got 3 dogs and a cat. And so we specialize at Thoughtlight at this point in mission-driven organizations, especially higher ed, and pet brands, especially sustainable pet brands, because we just love pets around here.
That's awesome.
If there's a dog or a cat involved, I'll even give you a discount, honestly.
Right. That's great. Actually, what better product to work with? What more fun can you have than working on a pet design? Right. That's awesome.
Absolutely. No, we have a grand time. Next week, I'm going up to Portland, Maine to do a photo shoot involving Tilly, who has been jumping on my lap this whole time. A couple of other dogs of my, my team that I'm working on that with. And you know what? I get to play with puppies all day. What kind of job is this? This is amazing.
Right. That's awesome. So now I'm curious about talking about emerging trends and things that are going to be changing in the industry. Now, obviously, AI is a thing. Everybody's talking about it. We've been talking about it for a few years now, and it is the main conversation when we talk about emerging trends. But is there anything else? Is there any other changes to the digital marketing sort of profession that you can foresee happening in the future?
Well, AI is absolutely the elephant in the room right now. I just did a study. I was able to hire a brilliant research assistant, research fellow, thanks to some funding from Harvard, to be able to hire her. And we did a study on marketers' use of AI, generative AI. Mm-hmm. And I would say it's unavoidable that people are worried about it. But I do want to say that according to this survey, we surveyed over 100 marketing leaders, and the majority of them are under the impression that we are actually going to see more jobs rather than fewer jobs coming out of the AI revolution. In other words, yes, there are going to be some jobs that are going to go away, but we're going to see more jobs coming through. So, I know you said, other than AI, what am I seeing? Yeah. However, we have to address the fact that people are worried about the future with AI, and they see that there are. I believe my colleagues that I surveyed who say that there's going to be more jobs coming out at the end of the day when all of this shakes down. But here are some of the other changes that I'm seeing. I think that if you're looking to get into marketing right now, and I think this was the same for my generation as well, get very good at a technical skill that maybe isn't terribly glamorous. Right now, a lot of my students who are closer to the beginning of their careers are seeing a lot of opportunities, for instance, in marketing automation and CRM platform management. So designing messages that go out through CRMs, marketing automation messages, that's something where there's a lot of opportunity right now. I think UX continues to be a growing field. I think that there's a strong need. I think ChatGPT can do a lot for on the coding and the engineering side of things. I don't think UX is something that is as easily replaced by AI as a lot of coding jobs are. So if you want to get into the software side of design, I think UI UX is a good place to go right now. So I think those jobs are going to hold steady at the very least. They're not going to so much go away. And I think also being a strategist is going to be very important, understanding the big picture. I think that a lot of sort of individual contributor roles, the kinds of jobs where you are just doing the writing or you're just doing the UX testing, I think those jobs are going to diminish. And I think that there's going to be more opportunities where you are setting the strategy across, let's say, text, design, branding, and UI UX. So graphic design, content strategy, UI UX, and maybe marketing automation or analytics driven. So start to become more of, I wouldn't say a generalist, but get a sense of the big picture. At the very least, you want to see how whatever you have a passion for, whether that's graphic design or whether that is content writing or whether it's UI UX, that you have a sense of how all of that fits in to the overall picture of the design ecosystem.
Excellent. Okay. And in order to get that sort of experience, obviously working on in a team sort of a situation where you're actually able to see what other people are doing in their disciplines, I think that's the best way to kind of get that experience in my point of view. Is there another way to kind of get that experience and just to be a part of and to see how other people do those jobs?
I would say one of the ways, obviously, to get experience is internships.
Absolutely.
I would highly recommend them. And one thing I'm seeing as a trend is micro internships. At Northeastern University, we have a partnership that I help to manage called HubSpot, the marketing automation platform. And what we are seeing there is that they have a really good micro internship platform. And through that micro internship platform, people can take on project-driven paid opportunities where, for instance, they're designing a new email for a marketing automation system and making sure that it works in the system and testing it on, for instance, different email clients. Or they're coming up with a new logo or a new brand strategy. And those micro internships have a couple of different advantages. One is they allow you to continue to work and study while still getting experience. Realistically speaking, being able to do an unpaid internship is a huge privilege. You have to have a family who can support you while you're making no money at all. Not everyone has that. And so I want to say, yes, internships are great. Unpaid internships are an unfortunate part of our industries. And I do say industries because, design can be instructional design, graphic design, UI, UX, and all of them have this unpaid internship problem, which honestly perpetuates sort of a haves and have-nots situation where if you don't have the money to not work, you may not get that experience. And so I really want to speak to the folks who can't do that, who cannot get that unpaid internship, because that's always been the standard way to get experience. Try to look for micro internships. That can help you get the exposure, get the portfolio built. And if anything, doing several micro internships across multiple industries can look better on your resume than one longer internship in just a single industry. You'll be able to speak to a multitude of different design challenges for different industries and build your broader network as well. I also recommend maybe not, since you can't afford necessarily to do an entire unpaid internship, finding micro volunteering opportunities. There's plenty of platforms for that as well. Volunteer for a nonprofit to design maybe their website or design some print materials for them. That can help as well. And so, if you are not in a position where you can do the classic thing of having a lengthy unpaid internship, micro volunteering, micro internships, and bringing those two things together are really great. And then the third thing I would say is get involved in your professional association. That became very important for me. I certainly, could not afford to even take time off to go to graduate school full time. And so what I did was I got very involved with the American Marketing Association, Boston chapter. It was a seminal part of my life to be their vice president of social media. And that in turn helped me build up my portfolio with skills that I wasn't getting in my paid day job at the time. So it can be done, and you don't necessarily have to have, a wealthy family who can support you while you do not, while you earn no money and work really hard.
Right. Okay, excellent. So, do you find that your role as a digital marketing professional informs your role as an educator or vice versa? And if so, how?
Well, on the surface level, obviously, because I teach digital design, I teach digital media, and I teach it to other working professionals. Everything I learn in my day job running Thoughtlight, my digital marketing agency here in Boston, I take it into the classroom. Like, I might do something at work during the day, and then in my evening classes lecture about what I learned from that, because that's how emerging some of the topics are in our field. I, for instance, do a demo of how to use AI in SEO, search engine optimization, and I might have done that, some refinement of that earlier just that day. So, for instance, the first time I lectured on it, I had done it just that day, for the first time live. And I was very transparent about that. So I'm bringing things that I'm learning in the field, and I'm bringing them into my classroom as subject matter, as lectures, as hands-on activities, as well as bigger picture informing the entire syllabus of what I do. It's really all real world based, and it's based on immediate knowledge that I've been gaining, as well as research that I'm doing out in the field from other practitioners. So obviously, because it's what I teach, I would say, it's easy to say, well, oh, of course it informs it. But I think you're asking a much deeper question, which is, well, how does this inform me as a teacher? And I would say I learn a lot as a digital communicator about how to teach people in the classroom and vice versa. So marketing techniques often get a bad rap that they're about convincing people to want what they, don't need. Somebody once said to me, and I tried not to be insulted. They said, well, you're a marketer. Isn't your whole job just convincing people to be unhappy with what they have so that they buy new things? Well, try to put that into practice in your personal life. And I was like, so no, that's not what marketing is. Not at all. It's not about convincing people to be unhappy with themselves. It's about convincing people that whatever it is that you have to offer meets their existing needs. It's about identifying what people need and then bringing a product to them or a service that fits those needs. And that's two things. One is identifying who actually needs what you're offering. And then two, communicating clearly and effectively using the media that they prefer, that target audience of yours, what the value is of your product, right? Meeting them where they are. So I'll give you an example, my phone case. If I were to stand on a street corner selling phone cases, I might get shooed away by the police, but people might stop and buy my phone cases. But where do you get these things? You get it online because you order it. It's not an impulse purchase. You have a phone, the case broke, you need a new one, and you order it online. So you find out where people are buying their phone cases. In this case, it was, I got it off of Amazon, and you make sure the product is there and you're putting that product's best foot forward. Well, so for instance, for my clients, same thing. Who needs this product, and how do I tell them about this product in a way that they're going to be receptive to it.
Right.
And that's what education is. Who's my learner? What are they here to learn? What do I have to teach that they're here to learn? But I could have the best ideas in the world and they could show up ready to learn. I still have to convey the information to them in a format and at a cadence and in language that they can relate to. So I'm not creating a barrier for them. So in that way, marketing is like education.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, education is also like marketing. You have to make it attractive.
Yeah.
But it also has to be something people are ready and willing and interested in engaging with, because it has to be something people want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, one of the easy parts about being an adult educator is that people don't go back to school late at night, 6 p.m. till 8 to 8 p.m. when they could be having dinner and watching Netflix, unless they really want to learn. But regardless, you want to tie both education and what marketing or design back to the user. What does that person want in this moment? What do they need? And how can I, with integrity, deliver that to them with integrity, but also with efficiency? Because sometimes it just costs too much to deliver the optimum experience. And then you have to decide, well, that's maybe not my target audience. We can't serve them. And so knowing who you're serving and how best to serve them, that's marketing. And that's honestly, that's teaching also.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad you put it that way, because that makes a heck of a lot of sense. I always look at teaching kind of like I'm on stage. I'm presenting something in a way that I really want them to be involved and understand and be into what I'm lecturing about, or whatever it is that we're talking about. So yeah, definitely it is absolutely marketing.
It's marketing. You're not just shouting at people. You're trying to find, what have I got that you need, and how can I get that to you?
Absolutely. Well, Christina, first of all, thank you again for being here. I've got one final question left. My last question for you has to do with advice for aspiring digital marketing professionals. So if you have any pearls of wisdom that you would impart to graduating high school or college students, what would those be?
I would say pursue something that you find enjoyable, and pursue something where you don't wake up dreading it, but where you wake up excited and happy to do it. But at the same time, be pragmatic and open-minded. Everybody wants to work, for instance, in marketing, in graphic design for the big brands, especially the glamorous big brands. There's a huge bottleneck of people applying to your dream company. And they may not even be the best places to work. Be open to working for a company that makes ball bearings or dentistry supplies, because you're going to learn in those jobs, but also you're going to be appreciated for what you bring to the table. So be open-minded about what you do and how you approach your career. Don't just limit yourself to saying, oh, I want to work for my favorite makeup brand or my favorite fashion brand, because that may not be the best pathway for you. And I really, truly worry about folks who set themselves up for disappointment by only wanting to work for big brands. And that may seem like very focused, very narrow advice, but if I were to say anything, I would say understand that there's millions of companies out there that would be very happy to hire you, where you'll have good work-life balance. People will really appreciate you. You'll get to do outstanding work that are not the brands that everybody thinks of. And so look for those opportunities. That's where you can build a strong, stable career, and really have your design skills have the opportunity to shine, but also to be able to grow and develop as a person.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice. That's great. Well, thank you once again for being here. And I appreciate your time. And thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you very much again for having me here. And it was a delightful interview.